Even with like seeing current affairs and things like that, it's, you know, they're constantly being overloaded with all this information. Then they get into school and then they're obviously expected to go through their normal everyday lessons, and there's not really an outlet for them to process all of that as well. There's not really a way.
And unrealistic body standards as well, like the media, all these like unrealistic images and you know, trying to be perfect and stuff, and no one's perfect, but social media does kind of portray that.
Welcome to The Silent Epidemic by Omnia Therapy, the podcast where we uncover the unspoken truths of mental health. There's a mental health crisis sweeping the nation, and we're here to discuss the aspects that often go unnoticed. I'm Hatice Mehmet-Quirk, a therapist, and each month I'll be speaking with leaders from various industries and disciplines. We'll explore how they tackle mental health both personally and professionally, offering valuable insights and advice. I am delighted to be joined by Jaylan Cecily and Kieran Goodwin. They are the founders of Mind of the Student, a charity dedicated to improving mental health awareness and support for students. Both Jaylan and Kieran have personal stories that inspired them to start this charity, and I'm looking forward to delving into it and learning more. Welcome to the show, Jaylan and Kieran.
Thanks for having us. It's good to be here.
Yeah, definitely.
Can you both share your personal journeys with mental health during your school years and how these influence the creation of Mind of the Student?
I think it's fitting if you go first.
Okay. So yeah, ever since I was like about 12, 13, I had really bad anxiety. Starting in secondary school, I struggled going into some classes, assemblies, just really bad anxiety. And I didn't really get the right help up until about 16, 17. It wasn't really spoken about in school, so I was kind of like struggling in silence. So then that kind of triggered this idea about starting a charity to kind of bring in more support into secondary schools because of my lived experience when I was in school. That's me really from school.
I was to say that, yeah, similarly, I struggled as well with my anxiety in school. I struggled a bit with like fitting in, and I just felt like when I tried to reach out to help or I tried to talk to my teachers, I was very much told that I needed to just kind of get on with it. I just felt like no one really understood how I was feeling at the time, didn't really feel comfortable talking to like friends about it. And I just felt like at the time it was quite taboo to talk about our mental health. I feel like now it is slowly starting to change and it is a little bit more different thanks to, you know, organisations like yourself and us. But, you know, there's still a lot of stigma around mental health. Me and Kieran both met in college. And it was there where we kind of had our shared passion for mental health. We both we did health and social care in college. And yeah, we was both really passionate about it. And it wasn't until, a few years ago that we decided to come together, start Mind of the Student and kind of tackle some of the issues that we both faced in school.
So it sounds like you both had a similar experience in that you were both struggling with anxiety in school. It sounds like, Kieran, you struggled in silence. It sounds like you reached out and then in reaching out still didn't actually get the support. Possibly because at the time there wasn't enough awareness around it of how to support students. And then you've come together to do this wonderful charity to try and avoid that and try and bring that awareness so that students can have the support that they need, so that when they do come out and say, hey, I'm struggling, the teachers know, the schools know how to respond to it, so that because when you both described it there, it sounded like you were quite isolated in that experience.
Yeah, pretty much. I think it was like anxiety, like just reaching out for help. Like that was part of the barrier that stopped me as well. I mean, the support was there. It wasn't very good, the support, but I think it was just getting to that point to just actually reaching out was really difficult and identifying that I was experiencing these symptoms and this anxiety.
Yeah, I mean, we went to different secondary schools, but I felt like there are some schools that struggle to offer that help a lot more. There's not as many teachers available. Some of the teachers are not very well trained on mental health, you know, like they're obviously trained in their subject areas, but not every single teacher gets support and training on how to actually talk to a student or even notice the signs if they see a student struggling in class as well.
I think identifying the actual symptoms is difficult for some teachers, and they struggle recognising it and then helping them. But
and then, that's, I guess, where we would even struggle. We were struggling at the time as well,
It's funny that you say that, because I've interviewed 2 different teachers, one from primary school, one from secondary school, and they've both shared that they're trained in their subject area, as you said, but in terms of spotting behaviour or how to support mental health, that it's not covered, when really it's becoming such an issue that you would think in this day and age it would become more prevalent and more of an importance to cover that in the training, because if they catch it early enough and they can support a child in those early years of struggling with their mental health, they can help put them on the right path. If someone continues to keep struggling, that then just adds to more problems occurring, because anxiety can then lead to depression through the isolation of the anxiety.
100%. Yeah. I mean, there is some funding going around now to train teachers on how to recognise these symptoms, like mental health leads and things like that. But it's still not good enough. I mean, what we do, we try and educate young people on like self-help, like tools and skills, so they can actually help themselves, and before getting to that deterioration where they really do plummet and then become depressed and stuff like that. So we're trying to help with the early intervention side of the charity.
Because a lot of the skills as well, as you probably know, they take a lot of practice. It takes a lot of practice for mindfulness, meditation, breathing. It's something that you can't just do one day and then that's it, you're perfect at it. So if we can get young people to start practicing over time, then by the time they leave school, leave education, they're into the real world, they're forced into employment. Then they can, they're a lot more equipped on how to support themselves as well and empower themselves.
Yeah, definitely.
So you guys sort of throw the idea out there of what tools these young people can be using to manage their mental health, ways that they can help themselves. And as you just said, like breathing exercises, I find in my work as well, a lot of people are reluctant because it's, I've done it the once, and but it's something that you have to be consistent with, you have to practice. I always say to people, don't expect to complete a 5-minute breathing exercise video in that, the first time that you're going to do it. You might only get to 30 seconds, and then the next day you might get to 45 seconds. And as you build up to it, you'll get to that 5 minutes. You won't even realise that you've done it because of practice.
100%. I mean, in our workshops, we talk about box breathing and that kind of breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4 and hold for 4. And that really does help. And that, I think the kids do pick that up quite easily, and they do use that after we go. I mean, what other stuff do we do? Do you like?
Yeah, so we also talk a bit about a distress toolkit. So all about learning how that young person can figure out things that support them using their 5 senses. So using their touch, their vision, sight, hearing, and how each of those senses can help them calm down when they're in distress. So it's all about individualising your support for yourself, because everyone is different and everyone needs different ways of supporting themselves. Just because Kieran might find breathing exercises useful doesn't mean that I'm going to necessarily find it as useful. There's so many different ways of supporting themselves. And I think it's about opening their eyes to all the different tools that they can use to help themselves.
And also highlighting the self-awareness of the feelings that they're feeling, because that can be a massive issue with young people as well, that need to mask their feelings because they need to fit in, or they're embarrassed to come out and say it, but actually encouraging them to be in tune with their feelings so that they can then have the tools to manage those feelings. That's massive. And that could, that will set them on that right path from their young years as such, to take into the world when they do hit full-time employment, and all of a sudden life is completely different because they're not in that bubble of school and their network and what have you. So, but yet they're going to be equipped with tools that they've been using from their young teenage years, so it'll become quite natural to them to use them.
Yeah, I think that's the real big thing for us that we would love to be able to do in the future is be able to give them the tools so that when they do leave school, they do feel natural to practice and to support themselves. I think
Becomes a routine.
Yeah, when we visit a school, we visit the whole school in one day. So we visit like year 7 all the way through to sixth form if they have a sixth form, and it's all about, like you said, getting the message out there and getting that whole conversation going for the whole school. And we think that's really important just in terms of just the message and everyone's talking about and everyone's on the same page. Like after our workshops and things, everyone's talking about mental health for the next few weeks. And, you know, it's just, they feel like they need that to kind of make them feel comfortable, like you said.
And it's killing that stigma then, because if it's then a talking point across the whole school for the next couple of weeks, then it then does become a bit easier for someone who is struggling to say, oh, you know what, last night this happened, or this morning I felt this way, or what have you. And it just opens up those barriers that perhaps you experienced at school, I experienced when I was at school, because it just wasn't spoken about.
We've got like social media now as well that obviously impacts young people. We talk about that in our workshop and how to kind of switch off, and exam stress as well. So I think now in school it's a lot more stressful, a lot more impactful, there's a lot more burdens going on for young people. So we do try and touch on those new things as well that's happening and affecting young people.
Yeah, I mean, we always say, like, obviously we struggled in school, but we couldn't even imagine what it would be like for the young people of today who have to deal with constant use of social media. There's so much more pressures and stuff now.
Yeah, do you know what that reminds me? When I was training, I had a tutor and he sort of explained that for us, it was different, right? We used to go to school. You'd be in and amongst your friends. You'd go home. You may have got 1 or 2 phone calls on the house phone, but really that was it. Contact with school was over, and then you'd have time to decompress, relax, chill out, and then you wouldn't really know what any of your friends had got up to until you was at the bus stop when you bumped into one of them or you got into the classroom. Now the kids are sort of getting all that information constantly. And then, you know, before they've even got to school in the morning, that thanks to Instagram or whatever social media platform they're using, they've managed to download pretty much the whole year's worth of events that have taken place amongst all of those students. Well, that's a lot of information to constantly be taking on. And sometimes it's not very nice information, you know, when you've got the bullying going on and all the rest of it. That's a lot for the young people to manage and cope with.
Even with like seeing current affairs and things like that, it's, you know, they're constantly being overloaded with all this information. Then they get into school and then they're obviously expected to go through their normal everyday lessons, and there's not really an outlet for them to process all of that as well. There's not really a way.
And unrealistic body standards as well, like the media, all these like unrealistic images and you know, trying to be perfect and stuff, and no one's perfect, but social media does kind of portray that to some people.
That's a big talking point for us. It's really important for us that, you know, we all do it. We're all very guilty of, you know, editing our photos and looking up other people and comparing ourselves. However, we think it's really important that young people just recognise and realise that not everything you see is real online, and just to be mindful of themselves, because it can be really easy to compare.
And then that's leading to like pretty much a world of perfectionism, isn't it? In terms of having this expectation that everything should be perfect all the time. When actually that's not realistic, is it?
No. It's definitely not. No, but I mean, we do talk about social media and like kind of taking time away from it, turning your phone off, limiting your time on social media, and just we have this before and after, isn't it, in the workshop, where we show like the before picture, which is like an editor's picture of someone, and then the actual picture, and it's a massive shock that they get. Even like advertising with like a burger looks so nice on these advertising, but then realistically when you go to McDonald's or whatever, it looks like nothing like the advertisement. So we do talk about that a little bit, but there definitely needs to be more education around this in school in a general. Obviously we are here and there are charities like us as well that do give education on mental health, but as a charity we're always like campaigning and advocating for more mental health education in the system.
What was the turning point that made you decide to start Minded the charity? How did you go about setting up the charity?
So I guess there's a bit of a backstory to it.
Yeah.
So originally I started this charity when I was like 17, 18, but it was under a different name. And since then, since COVID, we lost our funding and all that. So I was kind of thinking of just kind of closing it down and starting something different maybe, or just going into something completely new. But then Jaylan kind of came on board and was like, no, let's start it again. Let's rebrand it. So about 2 years ago, we relaunched it kind of under your kind of you was backing it, wasn't the idea? Because I was a bit like, oh, I'm not sure, but then you was like, yeah, let's do it. And then we relaunched it 2 years ago. So there wasn't I don't know what the actual turning point was.
I think we wanted to focus more because obviously, so the old charity was called World Youth Organisation. It was more focused on like mental health, but also education and other opportunities for young people.
Yeah.
And I think we both, where we had that experience in school, we both wanted to like centralise something. We both kind of had that idea, and we wanted to make mental health the main part of the organisation. And I think that's kind of been the driving force really for Mind of the Student. It's just, it started off more of just an education thing. We just wanted to, our main thing was just wanting to get education out there. But I feel like now it's turned into a lot more.
Yeah, it has. I mean, we was doing other jobs to begin with. I'm a nurse by background now. Jaylan, you was doing psychology and stuff.
Yeah, I was assistant psychologist.
And then we didn't really think it would be like a full-time job, but we're at that point now where we can do this full-time, which is really exciting.
Yeah, so from September this year, we'll both be going full-time.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So we've both been working part-time in our other jobs and basically full-time for Mott's for the last couple of years, and it's been a struggle, but we are like so passionate about it. And
definitely,
I think that's been the driving force really.
And I can feel that passion, and it's almost like it is fueled by your own personal experiences, it seems to me anyway.
Definitely.
You know, having been through that experience yourself at school and knowing how isolated you felt, how the lack of support kept you in that place. That passion now to stop people feeling that way in the future is what's driving this this charity, it seems.
Definitely. We can definitely see the impact. A lot of young people are saying to us how impactful the workshops are, and we hope to do a bit more, smaller grouped workshops as well and sessions, because obviously we do it to the whole school. So we're hoping to deliver some more stuff in the community and some other programs, longer sessions, But we've gone to about 40 schools now, is it?
Yeah.
Since 2023. So it's growing, which is exciting. More young people can get support from us, which is cool.
Yeah.
What are the main goals of Mind of the Student, and what are you hoping to achieve with this initiative?
Yeah, so I guess we're hoping that every young person could receive some form of mental health education, and that in the near future, every young person can also feel confident to support themselves, and they feel confident in the skills and the tools that they have, that if they are in distress, that they can know who to turn to, know what skills and tools are right for them, and also have support networks around them as well. I think that is kind of like our main goals, and for them to feel empowered with their own mental health and to make their own choices and decisions with it.
It sounds like your goal is to help not just raise the awareness, but almost, as you said, I like that word, empower them to realise, because as you said, there's tools, there's self-help ways that they can manage their triggers and their distresses, but having that feeling from within, I can do this, I can cope with this, because up until now, I think mental health hasn't really been handled in that way. It's almost been a slide that people, you slide down that dark slide because you haven't had the tools, you haven't had the support. So unfortunately, it takes you deeper into a deeper place than you need to get to. Whereas you're saying, right, if we start from here, there may be a few bumps in the road, but this is how you navigate those bumps. But you can turn to this support network, you can turn to this person to speak to, you can manage it yourself by implementing X, Y, and Z. And that they can take that throughout their whole entire life.
Yeah, I think that, the main thing that we always want to say for them to take away is just being able to have the confidence. The confidence and the ability, and also, being able to feel empowered. Because we still practice to support our own mental health, but we're still not 100% confident at it, and we always think if we received a bit more support in school, maybe by now we would be more confident in our abilities to manage our own mental health as well. So
and it's almost getting them to trust their intuition. Like, if something isn't quite right, follow that gut, don't ignore it. Actually tune into it and see what is going on for you, identify it. And you've put it quite nicely there. You're still trying to put those practices in place now as an adult, and you believe that had you have had those tools from an early age, by now it would have been easier for you to implement those practices because you'd have been doing it for such a long time. It would become more natural to you.
Yeah, it would become second nature to us, 100%,
Nice. How important is community involvement and collaboration with schools and other organisations to the success of Mind of the Student?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really important. It's actually crucial that we do get the community involved with the schools. We all have to work together as a team. So, you know, the teachers need to work together with the parents, and the parents also need to be educated, because it's one thing, the student being in school, learning different skills, but when they come home, if they're in an environment where they're not able to nurture those skills that they've learned in school, then that can be really, really difficult for them as well. Or if they're going home to homes where there is already still a lot of stigma around mental health, that is another barrier that we have to get through. We're not only getting through a barrier in school, but we're getting through a barrier at home as well. So definitely collaborating in the community, but also with other organisations that are there as well, because there are so many organisations out there. There's organisations like yourself, there's the NHS, and not a lot of schools, not a lot of young people know about these organisations. So I think if there was a bit more education around the different organisations out there and there was a bit more access to them, then that is another barrier that we would be able to overcome. It's about the collaboration efforts. It's going to be a joint effort.
Signposting them, I guess, as well to these services and educating them about what is out there, and also involving them with our with the program content and the development of our programs. We involve the community, the young people, teachers, parents, so they all come together and help us with our program development as well. We
want to find out what it is that they're struggling with, what they're going through specifically. Things change from time to time, so we're quite on it in terms of being able to review our content and see what it is that young people, but also their families and their communities are facing as well.
I've found that a lot doing the work that I do, that sometimes you come across young people that are keen and eager to engage in therapy, for example, but yet there is that barrier that comes in from the parents of, oh, you don't need that, there's nothing wrong with you. And there's still this idea that, oh, to engage in therapy, you have to be going through a major mental health crisis, when actually that's not the case, because just going to therapy to just download and talk about what's going on for you on your day to day, you know, that is social media impacting me, our current affairs impacting me, you know, the dynamics of relationships within schools. Just talking that through with someone can make all the difference to a young person and helps them have different perspectives, which can help them manage the situation differently. So we really do need parents on board to sort of have the understanding of what good mental health looks like, what the support is there to do, and break that stigma.
I mean, we've got an idea in the works at the minute with our clinical lead, Dr. Chooks. He's going to be doing hopefully a webinar with some parents and educating them on signs and symptoms of mental health problems with their children, and kind of getting that conversation going at home, because that, like we say, is part of the problem with the mental health crisis happening at the minute, just recognising it and getting the parents to support their kids actually reaching out for therapy and support.
Yeah, because what I find quite funny as well is when you do sometimes talk to parents, they are quite strong advocates for therapy for themselves and for their colleagues, but why is it that it's so, you know, it's really important for adults to digest and be able to speak to someone and let out how they're feeling, but a young person, it's, you know, like you mentioned just now, it's not, they don't feel like it's as needed, or they don't feel like, oh, they have as many problems, when really, when you're a teenager, that is kind of the most difficult time of your life. It can be sometimes, because you're going through all these different emotions, all these different pressures, and you're also expected to be present at school and be successful. And
And even hormones at that age as well.
hormones.
They're jumping up and down. The kids don't know whether they're coming or they're going.
Yeah.
It is a lot to manage. And I think people, parents particularly, need to remember that if their child does go to therapy, they haven't let them down. They haven't done something wrong, It's not because of, it's not always something that's gone wrong at home that has forced that child to need therapy, or, as you said, it's just navigating the day-to-days of so many angles that a teenager is managing. Exam stress, relationships, boyfriends, girlfriends, all these different things that are going on, and being able to talk to a stranger in that safe environment.
Yeah.
It can be all the difference.
Yeah, I was going to mention it's all about having that safe space with all those different things going on. I feel like young people do really need to be able to find their own safe space as well.
Yeah. Can you tell us the best ways for students to get in touch or get involved in the charity and seek help if they need to?
So I guess normally just go for your mental health lead at school, counsellor, any teacher really. They can always reach out to us directly, the teaching staff, and then we can get a workshop booked in with them. We don't really offer any like one-to-one service at the minute with students, but obviously we can signpost them to services like yourself. So yeah, they can always just reach out on email or for a teacher or the parent.
Or our social media.
Or our website as well.
Yeah, so it's the MOTS charity
Yeah.
on our social platforms. We've also got some advice videos on there for young people as well.
Yeah.
If they're struggling, and on our website as well, we have resources on there for young people to go on to and access. We have like a distraction toolkit.
Nice.
We've got some breathing exercises, worksheets for them to practice the skills that they've learned in the workshop. And even if they haven't had the workshop, it's a good start.
So you've still got some of those tools that you've mentioned available on your website, so the children or the teenagers can go onto the website and access them and use those self-help tools to navigate on their own, even if they haven't had the workshop. But then also, if they feel that their school could benefit from the workshop, encourage a teacher or someone at school to get in touch with you guys and get that sorted.
Yeah, so it's like part of our programs as well. When we do visit a school, we give the young people opportunity to become change makers in their school and get involved in some other programs that we're getting involved with. We're going to be starting our own podcast actually in September with young people, led by young people, speaking about their different life experiences in school. So yeah, it's a good opportunity for young people to get involved and just become really good advocates on mental health and hopefully change the conversation in their school around mental health as well.
And you said it was a change
maker.
Change maker. So what does that entail?
So for a young person to become a change maker, they need to have got involved with us in their program and being able to advocate for mental health in their school, so they can come along to some of our other programs that we've got going. We're launching a program in September called the Young Listeners Program. It's going to be 6 weeks long, where young people get to actually learn to be good listeners for other young people. So they get to learn low-level counselling skills, low-level interventions, actually learn how to signpost another young person, also how to be a really good listener as well. So hopefully if they notice another young person struggling in school, they would be a bit more equipped on how to support them.
And that's really lovely, isn't it? Because sometimes, as you know from your own experience, reaching out to a teacher can be quite scary. So being able to reach out to one of your peers and say, I'm struggling a little bit, or just having that person to be able to turn to and talk to, especially with these listening skills that you're going to do with this new program that you're running, that could be their safe space to just explore what's going on.
Definitely. No, we're looking forward to launching that program actually. It'll be a lot more high impact, I reckon, that program as well, because it's with a smaller group of people. And just kind of getting that conversation going with their peers and recognising mental health symptoms with their friends and family, so they can encourage them to get help quicker and sooner. Yeah,
and fingers crossed we've got some strong leaders afterwards that are passionate about mental health in their school as well. Yeah.
Nice. Each episode, I like to share a particular topic around mental health and offer some useful and actionable advice for listeners. Today, I've chosen ADHD because 1 in 10 kids in school have ADHD. Here are some study tips. Establish a study routine. Creating a routine such as studying for an hour after dinner or half an hour each morning will encourage consistency. It's finding the time that suits you. Create a dedicated study area. Choose an area that is free of distractions where you can set up your study materials and leave them between sessions. Focus on the quality of studying, not the quantity. It's more effective to space out many short study sessions rather than having one marathon session. Make studying a priority. When it's time to study, take it seriously as you would a job. Don't skip study sessions. Start on a time and give the task 100% of your attention. Set specific study goals. Goals give direction to a study session and provide a sense of accomplishment when completed. Create realistic goals, for example, 1 chapter, 1 section at a time. Don't stop at reading. Write down what you learn. By typing or handwriting information, you will engage in active learning, which can improve retention and understanding. Try making flashcards, writing chapter summaries, or creating an outline of the material. As a bonus, you can refer back to what you've written to quickly review the material. Quiz yourself to make the information stick. Look for practice tests or discussion questions after each chapter you read. Another way to quiz yourself is to teach something you've studied to a friend without looking at the material. Take care of your mind and body. Healthy sleep habits, exercise, and a balanced diet will boost memory and brain function. So as we've seen that's a high statistic, 1 in 10 children with ADHD. Have you come across that a lot in the work that you do?
Yeah, we've found that it is becoming a lot more young people are becoming diagnosed with ADHD. Myself and Kieran, we think that we're neurodivergent ourselves. But I think specifically in women, it's quite hard to get diagnosed with ADHD. And yeah, there's a lot of young people, I think, still suffering with it that are not actually getting diagnosed, and the support for it. I mean, in terms of the tips that you just mentioned, we do actually use a lot of those tips in our workshops anyway, just for like overall mental health and supporting, because I think similarly when a young person is experiencing bad mental health, they are feeling like there's 100 different things going on inside their head. And I think similarly to ADHD, they can get really overwhelmed with small tasks that they're doing as well. So there is a bit of a crossover between struggling with mental health, and definitely even if you have ADHD, you can struggling with your mental health as well. Makes it even harder to do things sometimes. So
I think having that distraction-free area as well for ADHD kids is really important, because in a school it's very busy, it's very loud. So I think a lot of schools don't really have that kind of space that they can be taken away from and just kind of, de-escalate how they're feeling, and having that distraction-free area is really important, I think, for someone with ADHD to have. But they're really good tips, and that I like that one specifically.
Yeah, I think as well, like learning your own techniques to support you. I think with me, I find like in the morning I have to write everything down on a Post-it note, and then I have to really try hyper focus on a task. So I sometimes give myself like a timer for 10 minutes, and I say I'm going to write 3 emails in 10 minutes. It's not a lot of emails, but sometimes I'm really feeling overwhelmed on the day and I'm really struggling to do something. That is an easier way of me doing it. And yeah, I think that over time with myself, I've learned different techniques to make myself a bit more focused and to help myself. But yeah.
So another tip to take from that is, yes, they're all valuable tips that someone could apply, but if a parent, for example, suggests that to their child with ADHD, it's not a one size fits all. Not all of those tips are going to fit though, every single one of every child, and it's playing around with it to figure out what works for them.
Yeah, 100%.
We like to end by asking every guest, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I think maybe I'd give my younger self advice to be like patient and not be so hard on myself, I think. So I was very hard on myself when I was younger.
Yeah, I guess similar kind of vibes from me. Maybe just have the confidence to reach out sooner, maybe not to be so shy, to ask for help, and things will be okay in the end.
Maybe not to worry so much as well.
Yeah.
I think especially when you are younger, like with all the things we mentioned earlier, you're worrying about absolutely anything and everything. And in the end, it's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe not to stress yourself out a bit too much and just live in the moment a little bit more. Yeah, I think.
That's good. Yeah, live in the moment.
Thank you for listening to The Silent Epidemic. A special thanks to our guests Jaylan and Kieran for sharing their valuable insights and experiences. Please go and find their website and follow them on social media. Also, if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to like, share and subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. This is The Silent Epidemic and we'll see you next time.